What's up, nerds? One of the questions that we get all the time is, when are you going to support my tool of choice? And this tool can be a new linting tool, a new build tool, a new framework. But the truth is, for a team our size, we just can't support everything. And that's why we have an extensive plugin infrastructure along with our dev kit so that you can build that functionality yourself. And there's this thought that an official NX plugin is better than anything that you'll find in the community or something that you could write yourself. And the truth is, we write our plugins using the exact same tools that we provide to the community. Writing your own plugin seems really intimidating, but I promise you can do it. And we're going to walk through the process today. We're going to take a frequent request for Biome and integrate it into an NX workspace and write a plugin to be able to integrate it. We're going to show you where to get started with Biome, how to apply what you already know about your own ecosystem to integration with NX, and finally, we're going to write that plugin that'll allow you to use Biome. Let's get into it. We're working with Biome, which is a fast linter and formatter in the TypeScript ecosystem. It promises to be faster than ESLint and prettier because it's written in Rust. And hey, who doesn't love using Rust to make things fast? We'll start with a workspace that looks like this. It's a React application that depends on a few libraries. And this workspace is really small, but the process we're going to walk through will scale to any size workspace. And where I want to start is thinking about how we would add Biome to a project if we weren't using NX. And let's see how far we can get knowing a little bit about Biome and a lot about the Node ecosystem. So if I wanted to add Biome to my project, I'd switch over to the Biome docs and probably look at something called a Getting Started page. And this is going to walk me through everything that I need to know to be able to set up Biome in a project. And it starts out simple enough. We need to install a package. Let's go ahead and do that. And while that's installing, let's see what our next step is. Okay, we need configuration. We need to create a biome.json file, and we can do that using this init command that they have for us. Let's head back over here and run that. And now we have a biome.json file at the root of our repo. So far so good. Today, we're going to focus on the linting part of Biome. And to do that, we run this command, and let's go run that. Okay, so without thinking about NX at all, we've been able to install Biome and actually run a lint across our entire workspace. And this is a really good starting point, but obviously in a mono repo like an NX workspace, we don't want to lint all of our files all the time. We want to be able to lint individual projects. So now that we have the initial setup of Biome, let's start applying our knowledge of the Node ecosystem to the problem at hand. So normally, if we wanted to avoid writing this long command every single time we wanted to run a lint, we would reach for an npm script. We'd open up package.json, we'd add scripts, and inside of here, we'd add maybe something called biome lint, and we'd paste that command. And now that we're inside of an npm script, we can remove the npx and the @biome.js. And now if we come down here, we can do npm run biome lint, and now we're doing the exact same thing as before. So this is a little bit easier, but I'm still linting the entire workspace. How can we begin to address an individual package? Well, the workspace that I'm in is using npm workspaces in addition to NX. And so every project actually has its own package.json as well. And so I can take exactly what I have in this root package.json, and instead of putting it there, put it inside the package.json for my Biome example app. And now if I cd into there, and do npm run biome lint. Now we're only running the lint inside of this directory. And that's because when you run biome lint with no other options, it's going to lint that directory and the directories below it. So when we were running biome lint at the root of the workspace, it was linting everything from the root down. And now that we're in this individual directory, it's starting there and going down. So because I've added this script to this sub package, I've actually already started an integration to NX that we might not realize. If I open up NX console, I'll see that biome lint is already available as a target under this npm scripts area. And that's because NX incorporates these scripts that are part of package.json into tasks that are available for your project. So while npm run biome lint works, I can also go ahead and run this through nx by running biome lint, biome example. And this is the exact same result. So now, if I were to take this exact same script and add it to my navigation package, well now, instead of just being able to run biome lint on biome example, I can also run it on my navigation package. And this output is a little scarier simply because there is an actual error in the lint as opposed to just warnings from the biome example application. So with some small changes, we're already able to use biome to lint individual packages inside of our workspace. So one thing that we're missing with this really simple setup is caching. nx doesn't know anything about the biome lint command, it doesn't know that it's cacheable, and even if it did, it doesn't know what to cache. So we need to give nx a little bit more information. So right now we can see if I rerun this biome lint on biome example, and I run it again, it's actually running the lint every time. Ideally, I shouldn't rerun this lint if I haven't actually changed anything between successful runs. So to solve this, we're going to open up our nx.json file, we're going to find our target defaults, and we're going to add an entry for biome lint. The first thing that we're going to do is say that cache is equal to true because we want this to be cached. And the next thing that we need to do is add inputs. Inputs determine when a cache is invalidated. So if you make a change to these files, the cache is invalidated and we should rerun the task. Now, you can get tripped up here because it's kind of intimidating to figure out when you should invalidate a cache. So what's the easiest way to get started? Well, we're going to steal it from another configuration that we already know works. If we go back to biome example and open up nx console, we're already running ESLint in this workspace. And in the setup for ESLint, if we scroll all the way down, we actually have the inputs listed here. So we also have a copy button. So we're just going to copy that, close that out, go back to nx.json, and then paste what we have. A little formatting makes that easier to read. And now we can go through and modify this so that it makes more sense for biome than it does for ESLint. So for the ESLint config.mjs, that's not going to be at our workspace root. Biome.json is. And we don't have individual ESLint files for packages yet. And we don't have custom ESLint rules. And our external dependency is not ESLint. It's biome.js/biome. So that should be all the setup that we need. If we come down here, run the task once, it should now be cached. So that if we run it the second time, we'll see that it's read the output from the cache instead of running the task again. So from here, we could copy and paste these targets to all of the other packages inside of our workspace. And while that would be pretty easy to do in a workspace of this size, I promise that this process would scale to any size workspace. And you're not going to want to copy those targets around in a workspace that has hundreds of packages. So what we'll do instead is create an nx plugin that uses inferred tasks to create those targets for us. An inferred task is a task created by an nx plugin by scanning your workspace for particular configuration files and adding targets to the projects where it finds those files. To start with, let's create our nx plugin. So to be able to write an nx plugin, we actually have to install the nx plugin. So we're going to go back up to the root of our workspace and use the nx add tool to add nx plugin. After that's done installing, we can then run a generator from the nx plugin called plugin that will create a plugin for us. And we're going to put it in a directory of plugin, and we're going to give it a name of plugin because I can't stop saying the word plugin. After we answer a few questions, it'll generate the plugin for us at the root of our workspace. And the important part is going to be this nx.ts, which is empty for now, but we're going to fill it with what we need to be able to infer tasks about biome. So just like when we were getting started with biome, and we looked at the docs to understand better what we were using, now it's time to dig into the NX docs to understand how these plugins are created. Let's switch over to a page in the NX docs about extending the project graph, but very specifically, we're looking for information on inferring tasks. So if we go down, we'll find a code example that we can then paste right into our index.ts. And this is the beginning of our plugin. And what it's doing is looking for a particular file pattern and then acting on those files to add targets to projects. So in this case, it's looking for any project.json inside of the workspace. We're going to start really simply and actually say we want to apply this biome lint target to every single package within our workspace. So if you have an older workspace that's using project.json, you're already set. But for us, we're going to switch it over to package.json since we're using NPM workspaces. So now we need to look at what it takes to add targets after we find a package.json. So when we find a package.json file, we know that we're inside of a project and we want to add biome lint as a target to that project. So we come down here to where we actually return the information that we found. So the important part here is going to be finding the root of the configuration file that we're looking at right now. This is how NX is going to combine all of the different targets that are created by different plugins for the same package. It's going to identify it by that project root. So here we have the root, which is the directory name of the configuration file that we found, which is our package.json for the project. And here we're returning something with projects and then identifying that root. And right now we're just passing back the project configuration as it exists. So let's start making some changes. The first thing that we want to do is add some targets because we now want to have a biome lint target for our project that we found. And first, we're going to say that this target needs to run biome lint. And to do that, we're going to use a little shorthand that NX gives us, which is the command property. And this is going to run whatever command that we give it. And we know that to run biome lint, we can use npx and biome.js/biome and then lint. So now we have a target that can run biome lint, and that's what we did with the npm scripts in the package.json files. So we can go back and just delete those now. We won't be needing them anymore. The other information that we provided to NX was in our nx.json file, where we provided all this caching information. So let's go ahead and copy that as well. And go ahead and delete all of this from nx.json because we're not going to need it anymore. And now we can paste that and format it so it's a little easier to read. And now we have our biome target configured and we have the caching set up. We need to make one small change to this before we move on. That's going to be different than when we were using NPM scripts, because when we were using NPM scripts, our scripts were executing in the context of the package that they were in within the workspace. So when we were running biome lint inside of an NPM script, that biome lint command was executing in the directory of the package. Now for NX, we actually execute targets at the root of the workspace. So we need to give this command a little bit more information to be able to execute in the project root of the project that we're working on. And we can do that with just a little interpolation. If we add this project root here, this is going to inject the project root into this command and it'll be ready to run. We're almost there. There's one final thing that we need to do to activate our plugin, and that's inside of nx.json. There will be a configuration called plugins. You can see that the other configurations are objects with options inside of them, and we're not doing anything that complex today. All we need to know is the name of our plugin that we'd like to add. So we're just going to copy that from the package.json or project.json, depending on which version of NX you're using, and we're going to add that as a string to our plugins in nx.json. So if we open up NX console again on this package.json that now doesn't include any information about biome lint, we will still see our biome lint target here because now the plugin is adding it. And we can even see a little line here saying created by biome example plugin. So now even if we go to other projects that we didn't add biome to earlier, like this home page, and look at it in NX console, we've got that biome lint command that's available there. And in fact, if we run this, we'll see that biome.lint is being run on the homepage library. So this might be enough for your team with this really simple plugin that we've written. You can do a big bang migration to Biome and completely remove ESLint. But for most teams, you're probably going to want to do some sort of transition where some packages are using Biome and some packages are using ESLint. And in fact, we don't support the enforce module boundaries lint rule in Biome yet, so you might want to keep ESLint around for that anyway. So how can we selectively apply Biome to some packages but not others? Well, let's look for some information within Biome itself, because Biome has a great documents page called Use Biome in Big Projects, which is exactly what we're doing here. There's even a monorepo section. And essentially, we can have more than one biome.json file in our project. We can have it at the root of the monorepo, and then we can also nest other biome.json files inside of packages, which is exactly what we want to do. So we're going to copy this example, head over to our workspace, open up our Biome example application, and add a file there called biome.json. And then we're just going to paste in the example. So this configuration is saying that it's not the root, it's pointing to something else and extending a root configuration. This double slash syntax is something that Biome gives us to say, go find the root biome.json and extend from there. And then we're able to configure these rules for the package separately from how the root configuration handles them. So just like we do with ESLint in an NX workspace, we're able to have fine-grained control over which lint rules apply where. And now we can go modify our plugin so that instead of looking for a package.json so that we look at every single project in our workspace, we're just going to look for biome.json. So this is going to look for every biome.json file and then add a target to that project when it finds it. The only other change that we need to do is we do have a biome.json file at the root of the workspace, and we don't want to create a project at the root of our workspace. So to do that, we're going to add a little check here that says if root is equal to period, which is what's going to turn up if you're looking at the root of the workspace, we are going to just return an empty object. And now if we open our terminal and do a run mini with a target of biome.lint, ideally we'd like to see only one project here because we've only added that biome.json to our Biome example application. Unfortunately, what we see here is actually that it's running it for 6 projects. And why is that? Well, NX is going to cache the compilation of your plugin so that we don't have to recompile it every time you run a command for NX. So to get around that during development of plugins, it can be really useful to turn off the NX daemon by adding this to any command that you run. So now we can see that only biome.lint has been added to the Biome example project. And if we wanted to add it to another project, we could go into any other package and add biome.json. If we run that command again, now we see it in 2 projects. And finally, if I'm ready for my plugin to just be good, I can run nx reset. And now this should work even without using the nx daemon equal to false on the command. From here, you can progressively enable Biome in your project by adding these biome.json files. That's something a generator would be great for. And because you already have your own plugin, you can easily add that generator to it to add these biome.json files wherever you need. So there we have it. We were able to add Biome to an NX workspace. We started out by using npm scripts in npm workspaces. We were able to add caching in the nx.json file. And finally, we wrote our own plugin to be able to manage all of that without managing any of the configuration in files in the workspace itself. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, gosh, wouldn't it still be better if the NX team wrote this for me? Well, no, because when the NX team writes a plugin, we have to account for a lot of different use cases and allow configuration so that people can use the tool the way that they want to use it. But you don't have to worry about any of that. You're one team that can run things in one single way. So your plugin can be a lot less complex than anything the NX team would have to put together. So as we leave today, I challenge you to support a tool in your workspace that the NX team doesn't officially support. If you need some help, jump into our Discord. I'd love to see what kind of tools the community is interested in, and also help you integrate those into your workspace. So hopefully you're not intimidated by NX plugins anymore, and you can share what you're building. As always, stay tuned for more.